Hello everyone, welcome back to Base Damage, hope you are all doing well. Let's be real, if you're here playing Uma Musume for Weiss Schwarz, you probably also got into the gacha game, the actual mobile game, and you probably are already spending money on that. Otherwise, you probably got here seeing the gold ship memes, who knows. But I am here to try to help you save money for Uma, since you're already spending money. We got Grand Live right around the corner, so I know you're gonna do the pulls for Agnes and Light Hello and all that. So let's try to focus. If you are here wanting to play Uma in Weiss, let's see how you can do so on a budget. Now, in front of me right here is just an example deck list that was sent in by Min from the Base Damage Discord. Very much appreciated, my dude. But this, I just wanted to give an example of what the meta Uma list is going to look like and just kind of use it as a comparison. So I figured once you take a look at this, it's like, what could you do to achieve something in a similar fashion on a budget? Now, the first key cards to look at are going to be the level 1 Satona Diamond Climax combo from the trial deck, which we are going to be using as a basis, a little bit of a floor plan, and go from there. Then the next one is obviously going to be the finisher. The Kurin-chan is what most people are going to be using for this. We're not going to be using this for our finisher, but let's at least discuss price points of each of the major cards in this deck. Now, Kurin has come down a lot. She used to be up there a whole bunch. In terms of the two big rares in the deck that are going to have a price tag, you're looking at the Kurin-chan is about $3 to $4, and the Sakura Chiyono Brainstormer is like $7, but I feel there's other cards that you can put in to change stuff around. Now, the double rares is where it's obviously going to hurt the most. So let's go ahead and rip the band-aid on those. The Satona Diamond is a little egregious right now. For some reason, it's kind of floating between $20 to $25, somewhere in that ballpark. And then the Grass Wonder is like, she's come down, thank goodness, is like $15 to $16 now. At one point, she was like $35, and even worse, she was higher than that in some cases. It was kind of bad. But we're not going to be using any of those particular expensive cards. There are some alternatives that can be used on a much cheaper level. The only one that I will admit is going to kind of hurt is not having the Grass Wonder. The Grass Wonder is what people refer to as a Ricky. When you play it, you can pay 1 to put the top card of your deck into your clock, and then you can search your deck for a level 1 or lower character. Now, this is typically what you would use to grab your Satona Diamonds. But even Min isn't on like a play set of it here, so I feel there is enough wiggle room that you can kind of fit in maybe a Drop Searcher, Drop Salvager, something else instead. I mean, you do have a Drop Salvager in the other Grass Wonder, but that is kind of something big to like take into account. Like obviously, there are alternatives for the others. We'll show them in a moment here, but like, this is probably the one thing that there's not truly a good alternative to outside of just your bog standard Drop Searcher, but we will address those as we get to them. So the next biggest point is not just the budget, but trying to copy what the deck has. And in that specific instance, I'm talking, some of the key common and uncommon cards, but especially the ones that have inheritance, because the Satona Diamond and the Kurin-chan both require a marker underneath them, which you have to be able to use inheritance to get the markers underneath them. So the other big portion of that, which is going to come into play with the trial deck itself, is how many cards are you running? Are you going to want to run that have the inspiration effect? Now, I already counted through here between the Grass Wonders, Maruzinskis, Sakura Chiyono-Os, and the Yukino Bijin and the Meijuro Brights. Now, if you add all that up, it's about 15 characters that have inspiration. So if we can pick up the trial decks and achieve a similar number with other cards that we can add in, like the commons and uncommons and stuff, I feel you can achieve something very similar, because like some of the other key cards like the Meijuro Bright or even the Akikawa Chairman are uncommons and commons. They're very, very cheap and can be used. Even the Maruzinski is one of the key cards here that, like I said, as you can see, he's running a play set of it. It has inspiration, but it's a common. So this is something this is kind of stuff that you can emulate, is looking at those cards and going, how do I want to play accordingly? So we're going to use this as kind of a base, and let's move on to, if we grabbed 2 of the trial decks, I'm going to show you what you can do with 2 of the trial decks, but also one of the big shortcomings of that. So So the first list is going to be showing off, obviously, so this is just two of the Satono Diamond trial decks, two copies of it shoved together, because it does give you, with two of them, does give you 4 copies of the Narita Top Road. And go ahead and completely be honest right here, I'm going to be using the Narita Top Road finisher for the other build that I'm going to be showing you, and that is going to be my personal like finisher top end. The Top Road is the top end, haha. But I feel that you can basically, with Uma, you can kind of replace it with anything else in the set. So let's go ahead and talk about this one. When Further Beyond the Brightness is placed in your climax area, if this is in your center stage, and has a marker under it. So it's going to be the same conditions as the Kuren-chan. And you have 4 or more other Uma Musume characters. You just have to have but you also have to have a full field. This gets the following ability until end of turn, up to once per turn when damage dealt by this card is cancelled. You may deal 3 damage to your opponent, and if that damage gets cancelled, you can deal 1 damage to your opponent. So quite a bit of cancel burn there to try to make damage stick, which is really, really nice. So I do feel that this is just so free outside of you have to be able to play cards from hand for the inspiration and to fill out the board. Otherwise, there's no stock investment. There's no discarding cards from hand investment outside of those effects, where the Kuren-chan you still have to discard, but on play, she is able to dig and add something to hand, so that's kind of negligible in that regard. The other big thing is the Naruto Brian does heal, where the Kuren-chan does not. That's whatever, to each their own. But that is my baseline, is using the Naruto Top Road. And I'm going to basically build around that accordingly, but because Kuren-chan is so cheap right now, like I said, $3 to $4, and it feels like she's coming down even further. At one point, she hit like 15. You can most definitely utilize a lot of other different climax combos in the set, because everything else is pretty dirt cheap, and because everyone's trying to pull for the SPs and stuff, right now is a good time to pick up those key cards, in my opinion. So we're going to take a look through the rest of the cards in the deck and kind of show you what we're working with here for the other cards that you kind of have to emulate, like the inspiration and stuff like that. So first off, we have the Mambo is a drop salvager. Now, if you do end up going through the deck pretty quickly with like the Brainstormer, because it is a Mill 5 Brainstormer, this could kind of function like you're in the Ricky slot, kind of. It's not a Ricky, but it can do a similar function of, oh, my Satono Diamond is in the waiting room, let me just drop salvage, grab it back type deal. So as opposed to just straight searching it from the deck. That's what I mean. So you would put a drop salvager like this or a drop searcher in that slot. It's going to be very hard to justify like not having a Ricky, but if you got to work with what you got, if you got to work within a budget, there you go. So, but like I said, even Min was only running 2 copies. So between that, and then you could give another. I just realized the traits up on here are kind of messed up. They put a date or celestial spirit. Come on, guys, Fireman Bob, what's up? But on play, you get to salvage back an Uma, giving Uma 1,000 power to end of turn, and then you can rest this to give 1,000 power to a character. So a little bit extra buff there is always nice. So. Next, we have the Admire Vega. Up to once per turn, when you use an act ability like a Brainstormer, you can give another character 1,000. And when your other Uma Musume character is frontaled, you can pay 1 and sack this to return that character to your hand. So the big thing you would probably be using this on is the Satono Diamond, and be able to bounce it back and be able to like play it back again every turn that you can, as long as you have the inspiration to do so and get a marker to try to get your advantage off of that. Actually, let's go ahead and mention that right now for those who do not know what the Satono Diamond does. Why is the marker important? On attack, if you have her particular climax in play, and you have 2 or more other Uma characters, look at up to 5 cards from the top of your deck and add a Uma amongst them to hand. But if you have a marker, you can add 2 Umas from those 5 cards to hand. So being able to just do that instead and add 2 cards is very powerful. You can still just add 1 if you absolutely needed to. So it's not the biggest thing in the world, but if you can give it a marker, you definitely want to be able to do so if you have the climax combo sitting in hand ready to go. So that's one reason why this is just such a powerful card. You could do either or. Like, it's not like the effect is turned off. Like, obviously, if you don't have a marker under the Naruto Top Road or the Kuren-chan, you just don't get the climax combo. Like, that's a big key difference there. So, but you can use this even without. So, being able to bounce it back with the Admire Vega and reuse it multiple consecutive turns is very nice and something that you can do. You have the Yano Muteki is your typical trial deck brainstormer, pay 1 rest, mill 5 for each climax, draw 1. But also on play, you can discard an Uma, say it's one that you don't need anymore, or you have too many copies of it in hand that you don't need. You can discard that to draw 1 card. Very nice. I did put 4 of that in there. Once again, for the deck speed, since we are utilizing like the drop salvager, just for 2 trial decks smushed together. Next is 4 copies of the Sakura Bakushin O. If you have 2 or more other Umas, this gains 2k power, putting her at 35. And she can get even bigger than that in a second here. But here is the first inspiration card of the trial deck. So this is mandatory 4 copies because you need the inspiration for it, which swoops her underneath one of your characters as a marker. Next is the other inspiration of the deck, and that's going to be one of the key issues here, is the Sakura Chiona O. All of your level 0 or lower characters in front of this gain 1,000 power, so the Bakushin could reach like 45 power, which is kind of whatever. And this is the other inheritance inspiration card of the trial deck. And that's it. That's the thing. So the trial deck only comes with these 2 like characters that have inspire, and that is it. So you have to run these at a mandatory play set of each if you just squish 2 trial decks together. That's the biggest issue with just grab. Typically, I've been able to advocate for that in the past of just grab 2 trial decks and smush them together. But you only have a limited number of Inspire characters. So you would need to pull in stuff from outside from the booster set, not just the trial deck. So just wanted to keep that in mind. And there are plenty of things that you can put in. I just wanted to point that out. So then the... Oh my god, the Sakura Laurel, didn't have her actual name up there. It just says cherry blooming past the winter. She basically, in result, she ends up getting very big if you have a marker and 2 or more other Umas. She becomes like a 1085, which is just ginormous. But on death, she makes you forcibly mill 2. You discard a card. If there's at least 1 climax amongst those cards, you discard a card, and you can salvage back a character. So more salvaging, get your Sakura Chionos, your Satona Diamonds back, and everything like that. Then obviously the Satona Diamonds we already talked about. Also, she gets very big on during your turn. She can become an 8k by herself before anything else, which is kind of cool. Narita Brian, level assist in front, and you can rest her to give somebody 1,000. Marvelous Sunday is a 2/1 3500 that during your turn gets an extra 10k, so she can become a 13/5. So I figured this was just really funny, like, oh, you have something big, I'm getting over it this turn more than likely. Next, from the trial deck, they actually had the money counter. This is a very interesting event. Level 2, 3 cost backup event, Next Dream. If you have 5 or more Uma characters, choose a character in battle. That character gains the following ability till end of turn. This is your opponent's character. It gains the ability, this card cannot deal damage to players, as well as choose one of your characters, and that character gets 1,500 power until end of turn. So, in addition to the buff, you basically can go, your character is not dealing me any damage this turn. So, that is actually really cool that that's in a trial deck. Typically, I mean, not like they're super high rarity, but typically you don't see these in a trial deck. I'm just saying. Then we have one of the level 3s is going to be the Kita-san Black. During your turn, she gains 2k, and on attack, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an Uma, deal X damage to your opponent, X is equal to the level of that revealed character. So it can whiff if you reveal level 0s or climaxes, but it's whatever. A little extra ping 1s or 2s or something is kind of nice. Lastly, the Narita Top Road we already talked about. 4 copies of Heal and the Cancel Burns. So 4 copies of the Narita Top Road, Further Beyond the Brightness, and 4 of Start of the Wind for the Satona Diamond. Now, once again, there's a lot of changes that can be made, and that's what we're going to mainly focus on for this, but I did want to show, like, you could slap 2 trial decks together, but this is just the baseline, so that you see what we're going to build from there. So let's move on. So this is what happens when you can take a lot of the different cards from both the trial deck and from the booster set, and you can mix stuff around and try to get a little interesting mix of each, because I did want to include multiple trial deck cards, just for sake of showing. But the first thing, obviously, we're going to try to slap in 4 of the Marzinski, because our off finisher that I wanted to use is the level 3 Marzinski, actually. So we had to have some kind of yellow in here. So the level 0 Marzinski is one of your inheritance cards, so this is really huge. At the start of your opponent's attack phase, if all of your characters are Uma, you may put the top card of your deck into your waiting room. If that card is level 2 or lower, which is a lot of cards in this deck, because it does have to be a character, so it doesn't count climaxes. But otherwise, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 level 3s in here. So only 16 non-targets. Well, no, sorry, it doesn't count events. It has to hit characters. So, sorry, 18 non-targets for this to actually proc off of is very, very good odds. So, it gains the ability when this card gets frontaled, you can return this to hand. So you have extra cards from hand that you can reuse if you get pushed to level 1. And it has the Inspire. Obviously, you need it for that. You need to have more Inspire targets in the deck. So, and it's yellow for the level 3 Marzinski. This is a really good card that everyone is running. So this starts off the everyone is running this card type deal. Obviously, the Marzinski is one of them, but I feel this is even bigger. This is on play, perform the following action twice. Look at the top card of your deck, put it on top of your deck or into your waiting room. Basically, you're just going to use this to try to dig closer to a climax so that you can brainstorm. And getting the brainstorms to go off is going to be very, very big. So then it has Inspire, so you got more targets for that. We left in copies of the Mambo. But I do feel you could replace this with a drop searcher. If there's another one that's on color for the other cards in the deck, I feel you could replace this with a drop searcher instead of a drop salvager. But you do you. I just wanted to point that out that it could be done. We obviously also, even though we do run pants, we want to have a climax swapper. And obviously we need a little bit of red fix as well, so this helps with that. The Asta Machan, if it's in the middle position of your center stage, it gets 1,000, so it's a 3k. And climax swapper on play, so pay 1 to pitch a climax, 2 grab back a climax. Like I said, pants puts in work and you can grab back your climaxes, but on the off chance that you do need one or the other, it's always good to have 2 copies of this. Next, we're going to get into the Brainstormer replacements. I'm going to go ahead and talk about both of them, the Gold Ship and the Narita Brian. There is a third one. There's a Fine Motion one, and it will be an honorable mention that we will pull up in a moment here. But the main thing that I do want to point out is the Sakura Channel owes $7 whereas the other 3 replacement Brainstormers are way, way cheaper. Here is the Fine Motion. So obviously, I feel people are going to lean more towards this, but I wanted to kind of keep on color because I didn't want to shove but so much green in here. So I'm using the Narita Brian, which gives your other Uma in the middle position of your center stage 500 power. And pay 1, rest this, mill 4. For each climax, you get to salvage back a character from waiting room. Very nice there. Each of these alternates do have different Brainstormer conditions. So the Gold Ship, I actually feel is a really good pick for this stack. The Fine Motion is amazing. We'll talk about that in a second here. But I feel the Gold Ship, if you had to pick like between the 3, if you wanted to put in Fine Motion instead of Narita Brian, go for it. That's your prerogative. Go for it. I just wanted to keep it a little bit on color and I needed more red fix. But this Gold Ship actually can come in clutch. So it is a pay 1, rest self Brainstormer. For each climax, you get to search your deck for an Uma. So this is search, this is salvage, the Fine Motion is something else entirely. But it says when your character's trigger check reveals a climax with a double soul trigger, you may pay the cost, which is discard an Uma, to salvage back an Uma from waiting room. You do have a double crit trigger in the deck. So on the off chance that you trigger this, you could just have this out and go, oh, cool, I'm just going to plus, randomly. So if you want to leave it to RNG for that, that's cool. I do feel like running this is going to be really good. I guess the standard that you could do is if you have a drop salvager, run the search Brainstormer. If you have a drop searcher, run the salvage Brainstormer. That's just my opinion. But if you run any of them, you could still run the Fine Motion. The Fine Motion is pay 1, rest this, mill 4. For each climax, perform the following action, which is look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose 1 card amongst them, add it to hand. That is extremely powerful, and I understand if someone's like, I prefer this over the other 2. By all means, go for it. I would recommend at that point run 2 of the Gold Ship and run 2 of the Fine Motion. That is just my recommendation if this is something you prefer. The other effect is when a climax gets placed, you can discard a card, reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. Your opponent chooses 1 character or event card amongst them and puts it into your hand, put the rest into your waiting room. So I don't like card effects that give your opponent power in terms of your opponent gets to make the decision for you. Like, I just don't like that. Like, that's just me personally, to each their own. But I like to have the actual, not the illusion of choice. I like the actual, I get to choose what the fuck I'm grabbing type deal. So, like I said, so something with this where I'm discarding an Uma to grab back anything that I want, I'm picking what I have based off of, how big my waiting room is at that point. So, But this is very powerful for the top 3 check and add a card, because you could add climaxes off of this to continue Sotono Diamond madness. So very understandable there. Moving on, we do have, speaking of Sotono Diamond, this is one of the other big replacements of the set, is the fact of the Sotono Diamond here is, like I said, $20 to $25. It is very, very strong in the sense of it can get very big, but it does have 2 other abilities. If you have another Uma, it gets 15, so it's a 35. When this card attacks, look at the top card of your deck, put it on either top or bottom of your deck. You can kind of control your triggers, it's whatever. The main thing is when this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, choose one of your other Uma Musume characters, rest it, move it to an open position of your backstage. One of the biggest things for this is using this to rest one of your Sotono Diamonds and put it into your backstage so it keeps her marker. If she were to get reversed, or if she were to die, if you encore her back, she loses the marker. So being able to use this card, which people refer to as a clean cut effect, being able to use this to toss one of her copies that's on your field that has already attacked into the backstage means she's going to keep her marker more than likely. So you can just slide her back up next turn instead of having to use more cards from hand for the inspiration. So this is one reason why this is such a powerful card, is that I can save a character and swoop it to the backstage. So the alternate replacement for that is this Tokai Teo. On play, you forcibly have to mill 2 cards, and she gains a buff equal off the number of Umas that get sent. That's whatever. The main thing is her second effect. During the turn this card is placed on stage from your hand, at the end of your turn, you may choose an Uma Musume character in your center stage and an Uma Musume character in your backstage. Rest and exchange them. What you can do is you move somebody else. But if you play one of these in the backstage, after all of your attacks are done, you can purposely swap one copy of the Sotono Diamond that has a marker and one copy of the Tokai Teo in the backstage, swap them. So now, once again, it is the same case. It is the same situation where your Sotono Diamond is now safe in the backstage. She won't get killed. She won't lose her marker, more than likely. Unless your opponent does some shenanigans, it's whatever, who cares? If they use wind triggers to spin her back to your hand, you don't care. It's still in your hand. You can just play it again next turn. Who cares? So, but in terms of, because of that, she won't lose the marker. Or you could use the Tokai Teo to swap with someone else in your backstage that you just don't need right now. Oh, I have extra Brainstormers in hand. Let me swap the Brainstormer up or something, you know? But you can do that, and I do like this Tokai Teo as a replacement, like a little bit of a tech here, and you do kind of have to mess around, which you could just leave her in center stage and swap the Sotono Diamond with something else entirely, but being able to have that control and put the Sotono Diamonds with the markers in the backstage is just too powerful, which is why this level 0 has the price tag that it does. So I would just rather go with the cheaper option. That's just me. We do run 2 copies of the Bakushin that we already mentioned from the trial deck because it has Inspire, and it's a little bit of a big, beefy body for a starter. The Gold Ship we already talked about, so 2 copies of that. The replacement that you could use, you could either use the Sakura Laurel that we mentioned before. Let me show it just again for purposes. From the trial deck, you could run this, because at the end of the day, this and the Super Creek are going to be the same stat line. They're both going to be 1085s if you fulfill all the same conditions with markers, with number of characters on field, etc. But the big difference is this Super Creek has inheritance, whereas the other has a forced mill. And you could salvage something back if you reveal a climax off of that, but I'd rather not do that. I'd rather grab back characters via other means instead of milling off my climaxes, if that makes sense. So having another Inspire target, as well as just a very, very big body, to me is better. So I'm going to run the Super Creek, but you can run the Sakura Laurel if you want, by all means. But it's an uncommon regardless. Who cares? Also, Goo Goo Babies. So next, I tossed in 1 copy of the Sweet Tosho Anti-Change Reverser. It is a bottom deck Anti-Change Reverser, really strong. Also on play, you can give something minus 1,000. It's kind of whatever. But also Witchy Moment. So I guess I'll also kind of include for members of the Discord. So shout outs to Cowboy and shout outs to Weiss Witch, because the Sweet Tosho being the Witchy. So obviously we talked about the Sotono Diamond level 1. This is one of the other big cards to talk about. So I did include Yellow Fix in here, and I did include the Majora Bright. So The yellow fix specifically is if you wanted to run the Akikawa event instead of Next Dream, you could just take these out if you wanted to in favor of using the Akikawa event. So you could do that. I just left that kind of open-ended there. That's just me. But this is one of the big cards that is kind of going to be under the watch list, so to speak. There's 3 cards on the choose one of 3. It is this particular Akikawa event, this particular Meijiro Bright, and this Nice Nature are 3 cards on the pick 1 of 3 list on the JP side. It is not on English, but we assume at some point maybe a similar hit might happen to Uma, because a lot of people are going to be playing Uma. It may, and depending on how well it performs, it may get the same type of hit. So if I had to pick one of the 3, I'm going to be going with this Meijiro Bright out of the 3. So that's why I built it around that. But like I said, you can take it out in favor of using the Akikawa event. It's your choice, but we did include yellow fix in here specifically for that, as well as having an off finisher. So the Meijiro Bright also has inheritance. So that's another one of your big inheritance cards. And we'll go ahead and count all the inheritance stuff after we talk about this card. Of the choice 1 of 3 list, I like this a lot more because it says on play, if you have 2 or more other Uma, you can discard 2 cards to draw 2 cards. So being able to hand filter and get to more stuff that you need, maybe dig to a climax, maybe dig to more inspiration targets, it's whatever. This is just a really good card, and I feel that this needs to be run out of the 3. If you had to pick one of the 3, this is my choice. So I wanted to include this, and it's another Inspire target. So we have vastly more Inspire targets between this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 inspiration targets. So I do feel that is like pretty close, because in Min's list, he was running 15. I feel that with this deck and how often you're able to get a lot of good recursion, you could just easily include these in. Maybe a 4th copy if you want to get to the 15. Or there's another drop salvager in yellow. There's a Grass Wonder that also has inspiration. So you can easily get 15 or 16 different inspiration targets so you can get your markers. So that is double the amount that you're actually getting from just slapping 2 trial decks together. So, and you have a much better selection of cards with the inspiration effects. So I do feel that could be the play at the end of the day. That is up to you. By all means, change it how you want. But I do feel this was major. So next we have a 2500 fine motion backup. This could be a replacement slot for something else. I kind of just wanted to include it just to show. It is what people refer to as the Leafa backup. When you use the backup, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an Uma, add it to hand and then discard a card. So a little bit of hand filtering, maybe get closer to a cancel. Very nice. So the Naruto Brian level assist from the trial deck. The Tosin Jordan Anti-Change, which this is very interesting. It's a 2500 backup. When you use this card's backup, you can pay 1, discard an Uma, and sack one of your characters. You could use this to deny your opponent on reverse and a finisher level 3 combo, and choose one of your opponent's characters who's a level higher than their level and put it on the bottom of their deck. Both of the anti-change targets in here are bottom deck cards, which is really cool. The money counter, the Marzinski off finisher is on attack, choose one of your other Umas, give it 2k, so you can give it to the Narita Top Road. And during the turn, this card is placed on stage from hand. When damage dealt by this card is canceled, put the top card of your deck into your waiting room and deal X damage to your opponent. X is equal to the level of that card plus 1. This is what people refer to as a Musashi cancel burn, all the way back from Kantai. So I'm very familiar with this, and it's for free other than playing the card. You don't even need markers for it. So just including this, I feel, was an interesting little choice. Next, most people are only going to be teching in 1 copy of this. I wanted 2 just because it's Tokai Teo, obviously. But everyone is going to be running this Tokai Teo. It's very cheap. You definitely want to get this. It is a on play, you can pay 1 extra stock to put all of your opponent's stock into their waiting room and put the same number of cards from the top of their deck into their stock. This is what people refer to as stock swap, and it is extremely powerful. And on the off chance that you want to use the second effect, you do have 2 copies in here if you could. When this card attacks, you could pay 1, discard a copy of yourself to burn for 1. So not saying that's going to come up a whole bunch. I rather just to have the guaranteed, like, I get the stock swap effect to go off. It's not stuck somewhere else. I have a better chance of getting it. So since we're already doing a good bit of red fix in here, it might as well include some extra copies. So, and then 4 copies of the Narita Top Road. Once again, you could basically replace this with any other finisher that you want in the entire set. And obviously there's going to be really, really good finishers coming down the pipeline with the movie set as well, but that is up to you. I'm just going with this because it was already in the trial deck, and honestly, it's not bad. There's better finishers, 1,000%. Like the Kuren-chan is amazing, and her price is coming down, so it's a very valid choice to, if you wanted to pick up the Kuren-chans, by all means, do what you want. But this, just if you're already buying the trial decks and you're getting the Satono Diamonds anyway, might as well use a resource that's already in the trial deck, because I think this is a really good level 3 finisher. So that's just my opinion. Do what you want, and I hope you all enjoy. But that is going to be the deck list. Like I said, you feel free to check this out. I will try to put this on Decklog if you want to use just a Decklog link and put it in the description. If I remember to do so. If I don't, I'm very sorry. But that's something that you can do, just building off of the trial decks. And just building off of that, there's plenty of options both in the trial deck, both in the set that you can do, and this is extremely budget friendly. Obviously, outside of buying the trial decks, which was about $16 a piece-ish on TCG Player, a lot of the other cards that I bought for it, one, I was able to pick up bulk from friends. So you can obviously just always pick up bulk from friends, commons and uncommons, and just, do that way. But you can also just pick up all of the commons and uncommons off of TCG Player or another site whatever site you wish to use, for pennies on the dollar, very, very cheaply, because everyone and their mother is cracking this open right now and trying to dig for the SPs, trying to get the high rarity cards. It's obviously something that everyone's going to be looking for. So these are going to, a lot of these cards are going to be bountiful, and you'll be able to pick these up for extremely cheap. So that is just my opinion. Build it how you want, but this is just an entry level for someone who just wants to get into UMA. It's not going to be the most optimal list by all means, because I like to leave stuff open-ended and show what you can do versus what you should do. Like you should get particular things, yes, but I'm not going to be one of those hard asses that's like, oh, if you don't run these exact ratios, you're a failure type deal. I don't do that. So, but by all means, build how you want, and this is just a great starting point as these trial decks, and just in general for Weiss, this is a very powerful trial deck. So, but that's gonna be it for us today. Thank you very much for watching. I do greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, and as always, stay based.